Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Fashion Brand Decoded again this week. My name is Esther Bankyu. I am the founder of Fashfied Studios, and this is Decoded by Fashfied, where we go behind the scenes, beyond all the hypes to decode the strategy, structure, and soul behind Africa's most powerful and successful fashion brands. So, welcome. Now, let's have a real talk, right? How many of you have ever been to a fashion show where you had to sit at the back of the seats, kind of just straining your necks and squinting your eyes, just trying to see the clothes and maybe just be a part of the show? Let's be honest, most of us have had to be there, right? That's like the typical story of most fashion shows, right? However, imagine going for a fashion show where everyone gets the front seat. Yes, like every single person, not just the editors, not just the VIPs, but everybody. Now, today we're decoding my Atafo, or as the brand is now known, simply Atafo. And this man went from being a senior brand manager in Guinness, Nigeria, to becoming Africa's most sought after suit designer. Now, he trained um, he trained at Savile Row, but he stayed in Lagos to build his brand, his empire. Now, the man who disrupted traditional fashion shows by creating his standalone show where 400 people got front row seats in 2022. And then he scaled it to 800 plus people, all experiencing front row treatment in 2023. Now, over 1,000 guests have had to sit on the front row for his SS 2024 collection. Now, this is what I love the most about my Atafo story. He didn't even dream about becoming a designer as a kid. Like there was no dramatic revelation from the cloud where it came down to tell him his destiny was to become a fashion designer. No, he just loved wearing clothes and looking good. And so that was how it started. Now, by the end of this episode, you will have 5 implementable strategies for building your own brand and a brand that is so customer obsessed where people would line up to pay premium. And let me just add, no fashion school degrees required. So let's dive in. Now, let's start from the very beginning, as we always do here, right? And I'm choosing to call this segment the accidental designer, right? So this is when your problem becomes your product. Now, so, this is how this whole thing started. Like most designers in Africa or Nigeria, because Maya Tafo's origin story is actually going to be one of the most relatable so far. Like I said, like most African fashion designers or designers in Nigeria that I know. Now, how did it start? He was born in Ilefe, Osun State. He trained at Savile Row Academy in Leeds in the UK. And upon his return, he worked at the British American Tobacco, Nigeria, before moving to Guinness, where he served as the brand manager until he resigned in 2010. So picture this, you're a successful brand manager in one of the biggest companies in Nigeria, good salary, solid career, and the stability. But then you have a problem. What is it? Given his height, my Atafo is a very tall man, his height and his arm length, he had difficulties in getting suits and shirts that could fit him. And so he once said, I could hardly get a perfect fit. If I got something that suited my sleeves, it was going to be very big on the body, And if I got something that fits the body, the sleeves would be short. And so what did he do? He started making his own clothes. Yeah. And then Like I said, like literally most fashion stories, you know, people liked what he wore. And then from there, he started making it from them. He started making it for them. So it literally went from finding a problem. I can't find what I want to wear. I can't find my size to making it for himself. And then other people who were probably of the same size, okay, I like what you're wearing. Where can I get it? I made it. And then he begins to make for them. That was how his story started. So the first lesson we're going to learn, we're going to pick out from here is sometimes your brand doesn't come from one grand vision, right? It could just come from you solving your own problem. You solve it well enough for people to notice and begin to ask. Okay, so your own problem can be the solution for other people as well if you begin to solve it. And so here's where it gets even strategic. While he was at Guinness Nigeria, Atafo started making ashoke waistcoats for weddings for his friends. I mean, the brides had their own colors and everything sorted, but the guys, because he couldn't afford like new purple, lilac suits and all of that, he designed waistcoats for them. And especially, and most of them, were ordering it in Ashoke. So, do you see the genius here? He didn't start trying to compete with any Italian suit makers or whatever. He started by solving a Nigerian wedding problem with a Nigerian fabric solution. Now, if you ask me, I would say that is market awareness and a very strong cultural intelligence. So, remember the way we do here 5 action steps for the week. So, the first action step today is identify your own problem. Like, what problem, do you see in the market that you have personally experienced and you know that you are uniquely positioned to solve? Think about it. Maybe it could be that, okay, plus size African women can't find elegant workwears. That's a problem. Perhaps you're plus sized and you can't find elegant workwear. Can you solve that? Or maybe young professionals want to look great in suit, but because they don't have the money to buy, very expensive one, can you provide something relatively affordable but really nice for them? You know, so your personal frustration can be somebody else's pain point as well. And so when you solve it for yourself and then you begin to gather other audience, at this point, you're not just selling clothes, you're actually selling a relief and people will come. Okay. Now, my Atafo's clientele, now going back to my Atafo story, his clients expanded to celebrities like Banky W, Omomi Akini, Fesi, and Atafo got gigs to style top celebrities at a reality dance show. I don't know how many people can remember the Celebrity Takes Two, but yeah, he styled some celebrities there, and that cemented his move in the industry. And so by 2011, he built enough momentum to launch Weddings by My. That was his bridal line, right? And so none of this was random. It was all strategic, right? Started from the waistcoat, then he moved to suits, then he started styling celebrities, and then eventually went into weddings. So each step validated the other. Now, this part, we're going to look at how his brand evolved, right? So he started off as Atafo. Okay, so let's just look at the evolving of his brand because this is something that is really sensitive for a lot of designers. Rebranding, when it comes to rebranding, it's a very touchy topic. Now, Atafo's brand started as My Atafo Inspired. However, as the brand evolved, so did the name. So he became my Atafo and then now Atafo. Why does this matter, Abby? Okay. When you when asked why he changed his name, Maya explained that he rebranded to separate his person from his brand, as it was important for him to grow the brand and it promises, you know, to do even better outside of himself. So he decided to separate himself. Now, this is next level thinking when you're not thinking in a box, right? I mean, we know that most times, most designers want their names to be everywhere. And to be fair, this is ego validating. Like, it's my name, it's my brand, and all of that. But my Atafo did the opposite. He thought that this brand needs to be bigger than I am. So let me take a seat back and allow this thing bloom. And so that decision opened him to other designers coming to work under the brand. The brand could now expand into new categories and the business could scale beyond his personal capacity. So the second lesson here for us is your brand should be able to exist without you in the room. Yes. Let's look at what was interesting in this whole name evolution of Maya Tafo's brand. Now, it started as my Atafo inspired. Now, this is a very personal, inspiring, but limiting name, right? And then he moved to my Atafo. Aha, this one is stronger, more authoritative, but it's still tied to one person. But now it is simply Atafo. Very clean, really luxurious, and institutional. So each name he used matched the exact place that he was in his journey. So perhaps your brand is due for a rebrand. Here's a checklist for you. Ask yourself, does my brand name limit where I am and what I can do? So, say for example, you make beautiful hats and it's time for you to expand to other parts of Africa or even Europe, but your brand name is Lagos Hats. Do you think that is going to limit you, or do you think that's a good positioning for your brand wherever you want to take it next? That's left for you to think about, right? The second thing to think about is the brand too dependent on me personally? So that is, if I'm sick today or if I decide to take a back seat, what's going to happen to the brand? Think about it, right? Does the brand name communicate luxury or premium if that's where you're heading to? I mean, if you answered yes to any of those questions, maybe it's time to evolve, you know. And the second action step would be to do a brand name audit. Okay. So this week, the first thing I want you to do is to write down your current brand name, right? Ask 5 people now, please, please don't ask your friends and family, okay? Just ask people who are going to give you, the brutal truth, right? Ask them, what do you think about my brand name based on just the name alone? Like when you hear this name, what do you think? And then compare all their answers with what you actually want to be known for. Now, if there's any gap, start exploring alternatives, because I mean, you don't have to change tomorrow, but I think awareness is the first step. So think about it and begin to do something about it. Now, let's talk about the move that actually separated Maya Tafo from everyone else, the show revolution. And I feel like it's my favorite part, right? So Maya Tafo becomes a genius when, I mean, most designers in Nigeria, and to be fair, most parts of Africa nowadays, while all of them are struggling to get space on Lagos. Okay, so let's take a look at how the fashion weeks work, right? 10 to 15 designers would probably show in a day. Everybody gets maybe like 10 to 15 minutes to show their stuff. And guests are in there back to back. So the fashion fatigue sets in because I mean, you're watching, it could be tiring. And then before you know it, your clothes is forgotten. I mean, you're number one, and then by the fifth person, sixth person, 10th person, we already have forgotten what your clothes even look like. So this is what Mai did. Mai said, Fashion shows could be boring, and the way we do them in Nigeria, where you sit down and watch 10 designers in one day, will get you fatigued. If something doesn't bring you up, then you will not appreciate the clothes anymore. So, what did he do? My, a disruptor of conventional fashion show, launched his own standalone show in 2022. Now, in this show, it sat 400 invitees on the front row. Let me say that again, 400 people all in the front row. And so, by 2023, Atafo hosted another revolutionizing show with 800 plus guests, all experiencing his new collection with another immersive front row experience. Now, for his SS24, Mai even aimed to go bigger than ever before. And what did he do? He chose Nigeria's grandest venue, Eco Hotels. And what did he do there? He hosted over 1,000 guests. It's the biggest and most luxurious venue in Nigeria, okay? So, do you see his pattern? He didn't just create a fashion show, he created an experience where the customer is at the center. And let me tell you why this his strategy worked. First, everyone felt like VIP. Like the picture we painted earlier, when you go for fashion shows, only the big guys are usually in front. The editors, you know, the big guys. But here, everybody got a front seat, and so everybody felt important. Now, that is him putting value on his customers. And when customers feel valued, they become your brand evangelist. Like they tell everybody. So, do you see the sense? Now, the second thing or the second reason why this works is because it is content gold. For his 2024 fashion show, Infinix partnered with him. And with my offering 700 persons front row, the Infinix 035G with its 108 MP camera, everybody used that to document the show. And so when you have guests sit in front, they all create great content. So now with Infinix, that's like marketing for them, free marketing, right? So they had like a lot of great content from this over 700 people who sat front row seats. And yeah, that was great for them in terms of publicity, marketing, communication, and all of that. Now, number three, another thing that made this work is the fact that it positioned him as a disruptor. Okay, so while everybody else was fighting to get a slot in Lagos Fashion Week, my Atafo said, you know what, I'm gonna create my own stage. And so he did it, right? That is power. Another thing was he was able to attract premium sponsors. So talk about Schweppes, talk about GAC, talk about Infinix, and others. So why did they all come to become sponsors? Let me tell you something. Sponsors will always want to align with innovation and scale. A standalone show with over 1,000 guests is a huge marketing platform for them. So this is no longer a random fashion show. This is marketing gold. So they tapped in. So your lesson three here is stop competing with other people's arenas. You can build yours. And so the action step for this week is plan your own everybody win experience. I mean, you don't have to do a fashion show at Eco Hotels with 1,000 people, but can you do something this month that will make your customers feel like VIPs? And I mean, some random examples could be, are you able to invite 20 to 30 people to see your collection before launching it. It just makes them feel like, oh, we're the first people to see it. Just gives them like, they feel like, okay, we're insiders. We're not just one-time shoppers, we're insiders, right? Okay, maybe you don't have the funds to host an in-person private launch. Can you do it virtually? you know Create, invite these few people, create breakout rooms with all these attendees so that they can interact, offer them special discounts, just something, to make them feel like we are the insiders. So these are some things you can, and then also you can be very creative about this. Think about different ways you can make your customers feel very VIP. Remember, the goal is to make your customers feel like they are a part of it, not just, one-time buyers, right? Now, we're wrapping up soon, and now we're going to talk about his signature pieces, right? And that is us talking about product strategy. Now, because Atafo didn't just build a brand suit, he built signature pieces that people could ask for by name. And one of those was his Trasidos. It was combining the traditional outfits with a tuxedo shirt. And it was inspired, by typically traditional outfits that we wear and a tuxedo shirt. And so if you notice, there are beads on them and the front is just like a shirt, because it has, yeah, unbuttoned, it was unbuttoned all the way down. And that was beautiful product innovation. He took two things that people already know and love, the traditional outfit and the formal outfit, and na collabo, right? He merged them together, and as a result, something familiar but fresh came out of that. And here's a business genius in this situation. When you have a signature piece that people can ask for by name, you're no longer competing on price now. You are now competing on uniqueness. My Atafo once said, I don't expect you to buy a black suit from me and come back another year. If you buy, if you own my suit for 10 years, that's my role in sustainability. And I have garments that are 15 years old that I still wear. So now his tuxedos are very valuable, but they are not just pieces you can pick and drop. They are pieces that are also durable. And that was excellent product development. So the lesson here is timeless quality is always a pricing strategy, because when your clothes last for 10 to 15 years, people are not just buying for consumption now. What you're selling to them is an investment. And you know what? People pay more for investments. So, how can you create your own signature piece, right? Identify what your market currently loves already. So, for my, it was the traditional Nigerian outfit, that sharp tailoring. For you, what do your customers already gravitate towards? Like in your previous collections, what did they love? What did they like? Right? Second thing is find diffusion opportunity. Like where can you combine two familiar things in an unexpected way, you know, to make it, like we say in Nigeria, blow. It's now left for you to be creative about that. The third thing you can do when you have found that product is give it a memorable name, a name that will tell a very unique story that people will always, come back and request for. The fourth thing you can do is make it your marketing. So every campaign you do should feature that your signature piece, right? And then it will become your own visual identity. So this week, I want you to develop your own signature piece. That's your fourth action step, right? So the first thing is look at your past collections. Which one or two do customers ask for the most? Second thing is, can you refine one of them into a signature style? Give it a name that is unique and memorable, and then plan a mini campaign around it. Maybe a photo shoot, a story behind the scene production, whatever. Just create something around it that will create that buzz. That signature piece will now become your brand's shorthand. So when people see it, they should think, oh, that is this brand, whatever your brand is. Okay, so think about it and let's get that done this week. Now, let's go to the corporate to creative strategy, or the corporate to creative advantage that Mai had. You know, this is something that is mostly overlooked in my story. The fact that he had a corporate background, and that was a great asset for him. We said he started working in British American Tobacco and in marketing. Then he went to Guinness Nigeria as a senior brand manager. So, what most people think is, well, fashion is equal to creativity, corporate is boring. But my proved that corporate training and this creative vision are two unstoppable duo. So, what did this corporate training teach him? First, it taught him brand positioning. So, as he stepped into fashion, Mai's background in marketing helped him to position his brand with powerful and lasting impact, leveraging on all this connection, his sharp understanding of brand appeal. He built a strategic brand positioning. The second thing his corporate background did for him was taught him customer experience management. In fact, he once said that the most important thing to him is to see customers satisfied. He would always check on customers' work, what is the status, and when a customer even walks in, he says, even though it's not my job to see them, sometimes I just like to sit down in the consultation. That's corporate excellence, that he has now brought into his fashion brand. Another thing his corporate life taught him is operations and systems. He once said that you're not just doing fashion, you're doing admin, the cars are running, the inverters are on standby, the place looks presentable at every point in time. All those things can be quite annoying, but they are things you must do. And this is the part most designers hate, but my corporate training makes him understand that it is what keeps a business running. Another thing he was able to do greatly was sponsorship and partnerships. Now, his corporate background taught him how to approach sponsors strategically, and that's why he secures partnerships with brands like Infinix, Schweppes, JC, and the others. Right now, the fifth lesson we are learning from his story is your non-fashion experience can be an advantage, not a weakness. So, say for example, you have experience in marketing, you now understand customer psychology, so you're able to do that very well in your fashion business. Perhaps you have a background in finance, you understand pricing margins, hospitality. Oh, you understand service excellence. Maybe in tech, you understand systems and automation. So don't abandon that knowledge, rather, apply it. And so the fifth action step for this week is audit your transferable skills. Okay. This week, I want you to sit down and ask yourself, what skills did you learn in a previous job or industry? Secondly, how can you apply that to your fashion brand? Okay. Then, thirdly, what is one system or process from this old life? And when I say old life, I mean the old job or the old industry that you were in that could improve your fashion business. Most designers fail not because they can't design, but because they don't know how to run a business. Mai succeeded because he could do both. And so that brings me to the last part of this whole conversation, which is the vision, okay, that he had. And so let me close with the vision that drives Mai's business or whatever he does. He once said that I want to be the best suit tailor in Africa. I'm not a sucker of going to international markets because those international people are trying to come to Africa. So let us be the champions of Africa before going out to the rest of the world. So let me explain what he's saying. He's saying to you that he's not chasing Paris, he's not chasing Milan. He wants to dominate home first. And you know what? He wants Nigerians' fashion industry to significantly contribute to the country's socio-economic growth beyond its current status while empowering local communities. So for him, the vision is even bigger than clothes. It is now about building an industry. And so he tells young designers, I want young designers to start thinking about fashion as a business and not something that gets the buzz. That's legacy thinking, guys. And so, um, as we wrap up, I want you to sit with these questions, right? What problems are you solving that you've personally experienced? If you don't have one, find. You would see one, right? The second one is your brand name supporting where you're going or is it holding you back? The third thing is, what would you change if you stopped competing with other people's arena and built your own stage? What would you change? What would you build? Fourth, I want you to think about one signature piece that your brand has been known for and how you can make it better. And finally, what skills from your past life are you ignoring that can transform your business? Write down all this because the transformation will happen when you apply, not just consume. Okay, so here's what my Atafo proves as we wrap up. You don't need a fashion degree, you need problem solving skills and business discipline. He also made us realize that you don't need to chase international validation. You can dominate your home market first. He also made us realize that you don't need to follow traditional fashion week models. You can create your own platform. Now, you also don't need to choose between creativity and commerce. In fact, you need both and the discipline to execute on both. So, Mai wanted to be a musician. Music is still his first love, but fashion has won. And so he has built something extraordinary. So, wherever in the world you're in, your everyday problem could be the foundation of your brand's success. So, find it out and use it. Now we have come to the end of today's episode. Join me every Thursday, 8 p.m. Today we started at 9, but usually it's 8 p.m. We had to push it 1 hour backward, but yes, we communicated on our socials. So join us every Thursday, 8 p.m. on YouTube at Fashfied Studios here on our channel. And please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Also join the Fashfied Circle and let's build African fashion brands that don't just create, but actually dominate Africa. Okay, so thank you for coming. Remember, a quick recap for your 5 action steps this week. Identify your perfect problem. What market pain do you personally have that you have experienced? Second, do a brand name audit. Does your name support where you're going? Yes or no? Third, plan your everyone wins experience. So, one event or one thing you can do to make every participant feel like a VIP. Fourth, develop your signature piece, one thing your brand could be known for. And finally, Audit your transferable skills. What are the non-fashion skills that you have that you can apply to your brand to make it a huge success? Now, go and build something that lasts. Thank you guys, and I'll see you next week.